In this video, I'm approaching the same subject in both horizontal and vertical versions. And you can tell me what you think turned out to be the best painting. I'd love to hear in the comments below. And I know that I have my favorite, and I'll share that at the end of the video. So while I was in Waikiki, my goal was to paint every single day in one of two sketchbooks. There were several days where I painted multiple times. This is my Arches travel journal, by the way. The size is 6 by 10, but really it's a 6 by 9.5 space. Each watercolor study took 40 minutes to 1 hour. In this particular beach scene, I had planned to paint twice in horizontal and vertical, but the thing is I didn't plan to paint it twice in the same day. It just worked out that way. The sky is painted with two blues, and I'm keeping the white of the paper for the clouds, and I'll be doing the same for the oceans below. The paper is drying quickly, but I'm able to drop in a little bit of color without getting watermarks. When I'm beginning to add the ocean, I'm using a flat brush, and I'm choosing more than one blue hue for my travel watercolor palette. I'm using the white of the paper as the waves. So to do this, keep your brush up and use the tip and lay down the color horizontally. And then as I'm coming forward in the water, I'm adjusting the brush strokes to have more flow with the waves, as opposed to horizontal lines broken with the white of the paper, which are further out in the sea. As I paint the ocean and the distant beach in front of the buildings, I return to the horizontal brushstroke format. So the closer you are to the front, you can make your brushstrokes looser and more expressive and fatter, and towards the back you want to keep them suggested with simplicity. And you want to go back to that horizontal thin line version. By the way, I'm choosing to paint the ocean right now so that the sky can dry enough before I begin to paint the background greenery and the architecture. This is usually my favorite part of the painting. Colors are fresh and vibrant, and I'm full of hope that this will be an okay painting, and I'm sure artists completely can relate to that statement. I'm also starting to incorporate some sea foam green hues where the water is more shallow towards the beach. This should be a really fun part to paint if you're painting along. I'm adding water to thin out my watercolors. I just love painting oceans. Oceans are so rewarding to paint. For those of you who paint in watercolor, don't you agree with that? I paint in both oils and watercolor, so I don't feel frustration in oils. But at one time I heard a watercolor artist online express frustration in trying oils. She said to the host, "You put the paint on the canvas and it just sits there," and the workshop host just kind of chuckled at that. And I could sympathize with her because I painted exclusively in watercolors until my late 20s. My first 100+ sold paintings were all in watercolor. In my 20s, an artist friend had encouraged me to try oils, and I could see the benefits of taking them to art festivals, and also galleries tend to prefer oils. I know that's not fair, they just do. It's just more of an established medium for them. And I have to say, like, if you like to paint large, and I love to paint large, and I've done many large watercolors, to be honest, the framing is more challenging when you're working with watercolor than it is if you're doing oils. So I threw myself into oils and I didn't look back much. And 20 years go by and, well, here we are. But I still love watercolor, so I do it from time to time. I was so into this painting, focusing so hard that I didn't remember to check my phone at the 30-minute mark to see if I was still filming. And so at about 45 minutes, I stood up and I took a quick peek, and it seemed like everything was a-okay, but my video had frozen and I wouldn't figure this out until I finished the painting at the 1 hour mark. I should have hit the stop button and restarted, and this was a big lesson, and I think I had learned this before, but oh well. And I have to say, like, the sun was so bright. I was out painting on a balcony, and when you're painting in sunlight, it can be tough to go from looking at the paper to a phone. So half of the first watercolor wasn't captured. So I set up to paint the second seascape in vertical format and just got to it. I was so disappointed in myself. I was so frustrated, but I thought, I'll feel better, I'll feel good, and I'll feel accomplished when I finish this. I think I was at the end of my phone's video capability, and even though I had plenty of space for video and recording, later wasn't a problem either. It was just a really sunny day, and like I said, I'm working outside in the sun, so my phone at that 1 hour was also super dang hot. Oh well, like I said, lesson learned. I don't think I'll learn that a third time. So with this painting, because this is the second time that I'm doing this, I'll be cutting through a lot of this video after the fun sky section, and I'll start where my last painting stopped recording. And like I said, each of these paintings took just about an hour to do, so I think this video turns out to be about 20 minutes. I'm speeding forward and cutting out quite a lot. And I've always found that each painting has a lesson to teach, no matter how much you paint. When you are painting small, every brushstroke counts. Too many might be saying too much, or even maybe not enough. The reason that I felt like this scene could be painted both horizontal or landscape, or vertical, which is what artists would call portrait, is because the strong lines where the beach intersects the ocean and the architecture are dynamic. And also having really dramatic clouds also greatly helps to keep the composition interesting. Your eye can move around the painting even in a small space. And the size here is technically 6 by 9.5 inches. And one big reason to paint a scene smaller first is to see if that subject is really worth going large with. My beach slopes down to the ocean, so my brush strokes slope down, as well as my shadows. And the beach often needs to reflect a bit of wetness as the ocean washes up the shore. And they also need to have shadows. And my Hawaiian beaches almost always have black and brown lava rocks as well, and I love painting those. Those are fun to paint. I do them freeform. So here I'm adding my fun black and brown lava rocks. I just love adding these. It's a challenge. I do it free form. I love doing this in oil as well. With watercolor, you definitely have to be sure that where you're putting your rocks down is going to remain that way, because honestly, you can't undo that process very easily, and sometimes not at all. I mean, you could take your brush and wash out some of the rocks depending on how dark they are with your brush by scrubbing it out with clean water if you felt like you needed to. And I didn't feel like I needed to do that or anything. I'm just mentioning that. I was doing this with oil, then it's definitely more forgiving. And here too, this is one of the funnest parts of the painting. I've got the background in. I've been able to do some of the really, really fun palm trees. I love painting palm trees, especially in watercolor, because I feel like I can be very expressive with them. And I love adding like brick red and crimson red colors to architecture. So this is one thing I used to do all the time when I was younger. I would almost always paint architecture, and I would add the red crimson areas first, regardless of if you're supposed to do that or not. I mean, I didn't know when I was younger, but it was so fun. I just loved seeing color go down on the paper. I'm using my flat brush for a lot in this video. Shadows are done again with really thin washes, and details are mixed with my darkest blues and reds to get the blacks and the browns. So here's a fun part of my painting process: adding mossy green to the lava rocks and adding the shadows and the fine details. My watercolor is going to emerge from its dreaded blah phase that every artist knows, and I'm going to try to not overwork that. And that's easier said than done, especially if you're working small. And then the shadows are done with thinner washes that are very transparent. And this is where knowing your colors in your travel sketch palette are good to know. You need to know if they're transparent or if they're opaque. That's super helpful because you don't have the tube there. And I will write on the side of the tube, on the side of the pan, And sometimes that area gets a little bit muddy, but if I really need to see, I can see what the color is. But ideally, you can make yourself a color chart, which I've done in prior videos, or you can memorize your palette, or even better yet, have a really simplified palette. If I'm being really honest with myself, I've struggled to bring these 2 watercolor painting videos to a finish. I know the paintings are good paintings for small works that are done in less than an hour. One piece I really love is a small sketchbook watercolor, and I think it really holds its own well as a small work of art. The other also has strong points, but I guess what's been holding me back from finishing editing this video and publishing it for all of you to watch is that I'm now showing longer subjects. I want to show how the painting was done without leaving out a lot of steps, and yet I'd like to add a little more vlog style elements to my painting videos, and I think that I'm doing that here and there. I just didn't do that well on this trip. The speed here is near double time, and yet I'm still trimming video to get 2 hours of footage, well, actually technically like an hour and a half of footage, down to about 20 minutes. If I could do this again, I would have taken the time to have my mom, who traveled with me, film me painting and talking about the piece live, and I had planned to do that, but on this trip she was actually working on her own watercolor sketches. And on this trip, I didn't have my trusty plein air camera guy, my son. He's a very smart 10-year-old, and I don't ask my husband to hold the camera that much, though he'd do a good job at it, and I'm sure he would if I asked. Usually when we travel as a family, I'm working a little bit less, just to be more with the family. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. If you like my art, feel free to visit my website, floravita.lights.painting. You will see that I create breathtakingly beautiful painted glass chandeliers and works of art for the wall. I'm a very diverse professional artist. I also have an art newsletter. If you'd like to subscribe, you can see my newest works of art and see my show schedule, and also get notified of my latest painting videos here on YouTube. So, which painting do you like more? The first one or the second? I love the first painting. I just think it worked out really well, and I'm going to mat it. I already have the matting for it, and it's a museum quality mat, and I think it's going to make this painting look really sharp. Till we meet again.